Have you ever been the kind of person who knows very clearly that you should go to bed early, but still tells yourself, just 10 more minutes? Then those 10 minutes turn into 30. 30 minutes turn into 1 a.m. I used to be like that. Not just once, but for quite a long stretch of time. At first, everything sounded perfectly reasonable. The daytime was busy. Work, messages, deadlines, all the little tasks that seem to slip in everywhere. And then when night arrives, everything suddenly becomes quiet. No one calling. No one asking you to solve something. No notifications. No meetings. Just the glow of a computer screen, a chair, and a very familiar feeling. Finally, this is my time. So I stayed awake. At first it was just watching a few videos, then reading a few more articles. Some nights I would start writing an idea at 11 p.m. And when I finally looked up at the clock, it was almost 2 a.m. The funny thing is, I knew very well this wasn't good. The next morning my head felt heavy, almost like it was wrapped in fog. I drank more coffee. I struggled to focus. I became more irritable. But the next night, I did the exact same thing again. For a while, I comforted myself with some very familiar explanations. As long as I sleep 7 hours, it's fine. Nighttime is quieter, so it's easier to work. Creative people often stay up late. It all sounded pretty reasonable. Until I started reading more carefully about sleep research. And there was one thing that surprised me quite a bit. The problem with staying up late isn't just feeling tired the next day. It's not only dark circles under your eyes. It's not just that you drink an extra cup of coffee. Some research in neuroscience and biology suggests something deeper. Chronic late nights may cause the brain to age faster than its actual age. It sounds a little alarming. But the interesting part is this. The brain doesn't age suddenly. It happens slowly. Very slowly. Like a machine that runs overtime every single day. One day doesn't matter. A week might not show anything. But many years later, small components begin to wear down. Memory gradually declines. Focus becomes weaker. Information processing slows down. And the ironic part is, most of us don't notice it happening. Because it unfolds so slowly. It's like looking in the mirror every day. You rarely notice change. But if you look at a photo from 10 years ago, then you see it. So the real question is this. What exactly is happening inside the brain when we stay up late repeatedly? Why would something that seems so small, just going to bed a little later, affect the speed at which the brain ages? And more importantly, is there a way to reduce the risk, without living like a monk who goes to bed at 9 p.m.? We'll talk about that in the next part. To understand why staying up late may accelerate brain aging, we first need to understand something quite interesting. Our brain was never designed to run continuously for 24 hours. It behaves more like a city than a machine. During the day, the city is busy. Cars are moving everywhere. Factories are running. Shops are open. But at night, the city needs time to clean up and repair itself. The streets are swept. Pipes are inspected. Damaged areas are fixed. If a city never had a nighttime maintenance shift, garbage would begin to accumulate. Our brain has a system like this too. Scientists call it the glymphatic system. You can imagine it like this. During the day, when we think, work, read, or talk, our neurons are constantly active. This activity produces metabolic waste. One of those waste products includes small proteins like beta amyloid. On their own, these proteins are not always harmful. But when they accumulate too much, they can become problematic. And here is the key point. The brain's waste clearing system works most efficiently during deep sleep. While we sleep, neurons actually shrink slightly, creating more space between cells. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to circulate more easily and flush waste products out of the brain. In simple terms, during the day, the brain is like a crowded neighborhood. At night, it opens up the roads so garbage trucks can come in. But if you keep staying up late, two things happen. First, the cleaning window becomes shorter. Second, waste continues to accumulate because you are still using your brain. It's like continuing to host a party while the cleaning crew hasn't even arrived yet. In the short term, the brain can still manage. Our body is quite good at temporary fixes. But if this pattern continues for many years, waste tends to accumulate more. That's one reason sleep research often links chronic sleep deprivation with a higher risk of cognitive problems later in life. But that's not the whole story. Staying up late also disrupts another system, the circadian clock. Inside the brain there is a small region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. It acts like the master scheduler of the body. The SCN uses light signals to decide when you should be alert and when the body should prepare for sleep. When night falls, the body begins releasing melatonin, a hormone that signals it's time to rest. But when you stare at a bright screen at midnight, the brain can misinterpret the signal. It thinks, "Oh, it's still daytime." Melatonin release gets delayed. The circadian rhythm shifts. And that shift triggers a cascade of other changes. Cortisol, the stress hormone, may rise at the wrong time. Dopamine and serotonin can become mildly imbalanced. Deep sleep cycles become shorter. And deep sleep is exactly the stage most critical for clearing metabolic waste, strengthening memories, repairing neural cells. So when late nights become a long-term habit, the brain isn't just tired. It is also missing its maintenance window. Like a car that runs perfectly for the first few years. But if you never maintain it properly, eventually problems begin to appear. But here's something interesting. Many people who stay up late say, "I work really well at night. My mind feels clearer then." So why does the body still pay a price? We'll talk about that paradox next. There's something quite fascinating about staying up late. Many people, including myself in the past, don't immediately feel that it's harmful. In fact, sometimes it even feels pleasant. Night is quiet. No interruptions. No new emails. No phone calls. You open your laptop, and ideas seem to flow. There were nights when I wrote faster than during the day. My mind felt unusually smooth and fluid. And that's exactly why many people think, maybe I'm just someone who works better at night. But here's a biological paradox. That feeling of mental clarity at 1 or 2 a.m. doesn't necessarily mean the brain is operating at its best. Often it's actually the effect of adrenaline and cortisol. When the body begins to experience sleep deprivation, the brain treats it as a mild survival situation. And the body has an ancient response mechanism. It releases stimulating hormones to keep you awake. Adrenaline rises slightly. Cortisol can increase at the wrong time. The result? You temporarily feel alert. It's similar to pulling an all-nighter to finish a deadline. In that moment, you can still function. But the cost usually arrives later. Sometimes hours later, sometimes days later. Many people notice it the next morning. You wake up, and your head feels heavy and foggy. Scientists sometimes call this phenomenon sleep inertia, a state of mental sluggishness after insufficient or poorly timed sleep. But the more subtle effects are harder to notice. For example, reduced attention, weaker short-term memory, slower information processing. You can still work, but you have to reread a paragraph twice. You double-check an email, You take longer to make decisions. And the tricky part is this. Our brain is not very good at recognizing when it is performing worse. Some sleep deprivation studies show something interesting. When people sleep less for several consecutive days, their cognitive performance gradually declines. But their subjective feeling often says, "I'm still fine." It's a bit like driving while slightly drowsy. You don't realize you're driving worse until you nearly brake too late. Over the long term, sleep deprivation also affects decision-making. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for self-control, planning, long-term thinking, tends to function less efficiently when sleep-deprived. Meanwhile, emotional centers like the amygdala become more reactive. The result is a familiar state. You become more irritable, more stressed, more emotionally reactive. You might have experienced this before. A small problem in the morning suddenly feels extremely frustrating. A normal email irritates you more than it should. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means your brain is sleep deprived. And if this pattern repeats for many years, the brain doesn't just experience temporary fatigue. It gradually begins to change how it functions. Systems related to memory, emotion, and attention start operating in a less optimal state. It's like a company that must keep running while constantly cutting maintenance time. Everything still works, but the overall quality slowly declines. So the real question is not, is staying up late harmful? Most of us already know the answer. The more important question is, what exactly are we trying to optimize? And very often, we may be optimizing the wrong goal. We'll talk about that in the next part. One realization I had quite late while reading about sleep research is this. Many people, including myself in the past, try to solve the problem of staying up late with the wrong objective. That objective usually sounds something like this. How can I stay up late without the consequences? Or another version. How can I maximize productivity while sleeping less? It sounds logical, especially in a world constantly talking about optimizing performance, working more hours, using every minute of the day. But from a biological perspective, it's like asking, how can I drive a car non-stop without maintenance? You can do that for a while. Some people even manage it for quite a long time. But the real question isn't whether it's possible. The real question is, what is the long-term cost? One common misunderstanding is thinking that sleep is simply rest, like a gap between 2 working days. But for the brain, sleep is not a break. It is another shift of work. During that shift, many critical processes happen. Memories are consolidated. Neural connections are reorganized. Waste is cleared. Cells are repaired. If daytime is like a store's opening hours, then nighttime is when the warehouse gets reorganized. If you keep extending opening hours without giving the warehouse time to reset, sooner or later everything becomes chaotic. So the more realistic goal is not, how do I stay up late with no consequences? But rather, how do I reduce the damage when life forces me to stay up late? Because the reality is, sometimes we will stay up late. Deadlines happen. Night shifts exist. Children wake up. Life phases aren't always ideal. Science isn't meant to make us live extremely. It's meant to help us understand risks, so we can manage them better. One way to think about sleep that I find helpful is this. Don't think of sleep as an obligation. Think of it as the brain's maintenance fund. Every full night of sleep is like depositing money into that account. A few late nights are like withdrawals. That's fine occasionally. But if you keep withdrawing without ever depositing again, the account will eventually run empty. And the frustrating part is this. When that biological account starts running low, it doesn't send an obvious warning. There's no red alert, no notification. Instead, your focus drops a little, your memory slips a little, your stress rises a little. Each change is small, but together, they can create a huge difference over 10 or 20 years. So if we accept one reality, that sometimes we will still stay up late, then the next useful question becomes, what can we do to reduce the impact? Not magic tricks, not brain hacks, just practical ways to give the body a better chance to recover. We'll talk about those next. Once you understand the mechanism, that the brain needs sleep to clean, repair, and rebalance itself. Reducing the risk of late nights doesn't require miracle hacks. It's actually much simpler. You just create conditions that minimize damage as much as possible. I often think about it like driving a long distance. You can drive through the night, but you still need to prepare beforehand, drive carefully while on the road, and give the car rest afterward. Staying up late works the same way. Before a late night, if you already know that you'll have to work late tonight, the first useful step is not drinking coffee. A better strategy is reducing sleep debt beforehand. For example, get enough sleep the night before. Avoid multiple days of accumulated sleep loss. The reason is simple. Sleep deprivation is not an on-off switch. It behaves more like accumulating debt. One short night is rarely disastrous, but several nights in a row, and the brain starts missing its maintenance time. Another helpful strategy is a short midday nap. A nap of about 15 to 25 minutes can reduce sleep pressure, improve alertness, but it's important to understand the limit. Naps cannot fully replace nighttime sleep. They function more like a temporary advance. During the late night, many people try to force their brain to work continuously. But when sleep deprived, the brain processes information less efficiently. So a better strategy is reducing cognitive load. For example, breaking tasks into short blocks. Taking a few minutes of rest every 45 to 60 minutes. This gives the nervous system time to lower stress. Another important factor is light. Bright light, especially blue light from screens, can delay melatonin even further. If you must work late, reducing screen brightness or switching to warmer light modes may help the circadian clock stay less disrupted. It's not perfect, but it reduces the fake daytime signal. As for coffee, caffeine works by blocking adenosine, a chemical that makes the brain feel sleepy. This temporarily increases alertness. But caffeine doesn't remove fatigue. It only masks the signal. So if you drink it too late, your later sleep may become lighter and more fragmented. A practical guideline: if possible, avoid caffeine within 6 hours before sleep. After a late night, this is the step many people skip entirely. After going to bed very late, a common reaction is trying to stay awake all day. 2. Reset the circadian rhythm. Sometimes this works, but if the body is severely sleep deprived, it can push the brain deeper into exhaustion. A gentler approach is: expose yourself to natural morning light. Do light physical movement. Take a moderate recovery nap if needed. Sleeping too long during the day can make it harder to fall asleep the next night. So a nap of around 60 to 90 minutes is usually more reasonable than sleeping several hours. In the long run, the most important factor is a stable circadian rhythm. The brain likes predictability. If sleep times change dramatically every day, the circadian clock struggles to stay synchronized. So even if you occasionally stay up late, keeping a relatively consistent sleep schedule on other days can significantly reduce the negative impact. Not perfect, but enough to give the brain time to maintain its internal systems. After reading many sleep studies, there's one idea that really changed how I think about late nights. I used to think sleep was simply time when nothing happens. A pause between two working days. If you sleep less, it feels like you gain extra time. But the biology of the body suggests the opposite. When you cut sleep short, you're not really gaining time. You're borrowing time from the future. The brain can keep running. Sometimes it even runs surprisingly well. But the maintenance, the repair work, the cleanup process, is being postponed. It's like a house that never receives regular repairs. In the first few years, everything still looks fine. But over time, small cracks begin to appear. A little in memory, a little in concentration, a little in how you respond to stress. Nothing dramatic at first, just small changes that accumulate. And the important thing is this. This doesn't mean you must live extremely. Real life isn't a laboratory. Sometimes you'll stay up late for work. Sometimes for family. Sometimes for projects that excite you. Sometimes you simply want to sit quietly at night, because it's the only peaceful moment in your day. That's completely normal. The purpose of understanding sleep science is not to make you feel guilty every time you go to bed late. The purpose is to give you agency. When you understand what's happening inside your body, you can make more conscious choices. For example, knowing when to prioritize sleep, knowing when flexibility is acceptable, and knowing how to help your body recover after demanding periods. Health, in a sense, is a long-term investment. You don't need to be perfect every day. But small decisions repeated across many years can create a massive difference. One early night might not change your life, but hundreds of them might allow your brain to enter middle age with far more cognitive reserve. And that may be the most realistic way to think about health. Not as a task to complete, but as a system that needs long-term care. Understand your body, respect its limits, and sometimes, give it the time it needs to rest. The content in this video is intended for sharing general scientific knowledge and personal experiences. It does not replace professional medical advice. If you have underlying medical conditions, sleep disorders, are taking medication, or experience health problems related to sleep or the nervous system, please consult a doctor or qualified healthcare professional for advice tailored to your personal situation.